Okay, so I think we all know that there are some things, some pretty fundamental things even, that can really trip us up in life. And today we're going to look at one of the big ones. We're going straight for fear.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically, we're diving deep into how to get past fear when it comes to sharing what you believe.
Okay.
And we're going to be drawing from a collection of insights that's called Overcoming Fear, Walking in Bold Faith. So we're not just talking about, everyday anxieties. We're talking about that hesitation you might feel when you want to speak up about something that really matters to you.
Yeah, exactly. Like the stuff that's close to your heart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And our goal here, our mission for this deep dive, is to really pull out the most useful stuff from this source material to help you overcome that hesitation and really step out with confidence.
I love that.
Yeah,
I think that's something we can all benefit from.
absolutely.
As we jump into this, what strikes me as really interesting is how this source material, Overcoming Fear, it really frames fear not as just this occasional thing that pops up, but as a major roadblock.
Oh, yeah?
It says that for a lot of people, fear actually keeps them from living out what they believe and sharing those beliefs with others.
Hmm.
And it gets even deeper, It offers this really thought-provoking perspective on where that fear might be coming from.
That's so interesting because right out of the gate, the source, it hits you with this verse from 2 Timothy 1:7. It says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind."
Right. Powerful words.
So, like, what jumps out at you from that? Because the implication seems pretty clear, right? Fear isn't part of some divine plan for us.
Yeah, it's definitely a powerful statement. I think what resonates with me is how this verse was initially written to encourage a young leader who's facing like serious opposition. So it's like this reminder that even when things are tough, you have this inherent strength, this inner clarity available to you. And that, to me, that stands in direct contrast to fear.
Totally.
And the source, the overcoming fear, it takes it a step further and suggests that fear is actually it uses this phrase, tactic of the enemy.
Okay, so when it uses that term tactic of the enemy, like, what's the idea behind that? What's the point it's trying to make?
Essentially, it's presenting fear as this force that's, actively working against you,
Ah,
trying to keep your beliefs quiet, just to yourself.
yeah, like it wants to silence you.
Exactly. And it paints this picture where choosing to be bold,
Yeah.
choosing to speak up, it's like a direct way to push back against that force.
Mhm.
So for you listening right now, the key takeaway here is those feelings of being nervous or apprehensive, they're not just, personal quirks, right?
Yeah.
And the source is suggesting that there's like this bigger dynamic going on.
That's huge. It's not just about being shy, right?
Right.
It's something that's actually trying to hold you back.
Exactly.
And one of the most important points, I think, is the distinction the source makes between fear as a feeling and boldness as a decision.
It's a powerful distinction. Like,
Yeah.
you might always feel a little nervous or unsure when you do something outside your comfort zone, right? That's natural. But the source is arguing that true boldness, it's not about the absence of that feeling. It's about, making a deliberate choice to act even when you feel those nerves.
Okay, that's a great way to think about it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something that I think a lot of people struggle with, maybe everyone, the fear of rejection. You put yourself out there, you share something that you believe in deeply, and then nothing.
Crickets.
Crickets,
Yeah.
or worse,
Yeah.
you get negativity.
Yeah.
This source, it tackles that head on,
Yeah.
and it brings in a really, really important figure, Jesus.
Mm.
And it says, uses John 15:18.
Okay.
It says, if the world hates you, keep in mind that it hated me first.
Right.
So think about that.
Whoa.
Even Jesus.
Yeah.
Right. He faced rejection.
Yeah.
So the source is trying to normalize that experience
Mm.
for us. It's saying that if it happened to him, it might happen to you, and that doesn't make what you're doing any less valuable.
That's a great point. It takes the sting out of it a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a personal failing.
Yeah.
It's almost like it could be a sign you're doing something right,
Right.
you know? And there's this other point that I found really helpful. The source says that your main responsibility is to plant the seed of your beliefs.
Hmm.
The outcome, whether someone accepts it or rejects it, it's not all on your shoulders.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. It's not totally up to you. You just share. You just offer what you believe is true.
Yeah.
And then, you let go of the need to control how people react.
Exactly. I mean, that's freeing, right? It takes off some of the pressure.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be responsible for everyone else's reaction.
So we've talked about fear being this huge obstacle
Hmm.
and rejection being a real possibility. But how do we actually cultivate boldness?
Right, right. How do you get to that point?
Yeah, like how do you do it?
Mm-hmm.
And the source dives into that. And it takes this really interesting approach by looking at the early church.
Okay, yeah. What's it say about them?
Well, it references Acts 4.29.
Okay.
And it talks about how the early Christians, they were praying specifically for boldness
Wow, really?
because they were facing threats and opposite.
Oh, I see, yeah.
And the connection the source is making is that boldness isn't just a personality trait.
Like you're not just born with it or...
Right. It's not like some people are just naturally bold and others aren't.
Right, right.
It suggests that it comes from the Holy Spirit.
So it's something anyone can access. It's
Exactly.
not just the super outgoing people.
And think about the impact that the early church had. I mean, they changed the world.
That's true.
So if they could do that, then there's this potential for people today, for you listening, to do the same.
That's encouraging. So it's not just about like personal growth, it's about making a difference in the world.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah, and there's this really amazing principle the source talks about. It says, when you step out, God steps in.
Oh, I've heard that before.
Yeah, so it's this idea that when you take that leap of faith, when you act even though you're afraid, you open yourself up to a kind of support that you might not get otherwise.
It's like you take the first step and then...
Then you're not alone.
Yeah, like you get this backup you weren't expecting.
It could be finding the right words to say in a tough conversation or having this unexpected strength when things get hard.
Yeah, it's like someone's got your back.
But what I really appreciate about this source is that it doesn't just stop at this big idea.
Yeah.
It actually gives you practical steps you can take.
Okay, so how do you actually do it?
It says to start small,
Small, okay.
like really small. Invite someone to church with you or share a personal story about your faith.
Yeah.
Or even just show someone a verse from the Bible that you think might help them.
So it's not about doing something big and scary right away.
Exactly.
It's about easing into it.
And the idea here is that boldness isn't something you suddenly have. You have to build it up. It's like working out a muscle.
The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
Right. And the more natural it feels.
That makes sense.
So even those tiny steps are super important.
Yeah, they get you moving in the right direction.
Okay, so let's recap. We've spent this time diving deep into overcoming fear, walking in bold faith. And here's what we've learned. Fear, according to this source, it's not something God gave us. It's more like an outside force that's trying to shut you down. True boldness, it's not the absence of fear. It's choosing to act even when you're scared.
It's about making a decision.
And when you're facing that fear of rejection, remember that even Jesus dealt with it. You're not alone in that.
It's part of the journey.
And your main job is to share honestly and authentically.
Not to control how everyone else reacts.
Right. And remember, cultivating boldness, it's not about waiting for some magical feeling.
It's about taking action.
It's about doing something,
Even if it's small.
even if it's tiny,
Mm-hmm.
and drawing on a strength that's bigger than yourself.
And what's so powerful about all of this is that even though fear is a very real feeling, you're not powerless. You have the ability to choose boldness. It's not just for certain people, it's available to everyone.
So here's something for you to think about as we wrap up. If the main thing holding you back from living out your beliefs and sharing them with others is fear, and if boldness is something you can build up over time,
Like a muscle,
like a muscle,
right?
what's one small thing you can do today to start strengthening that muscle?
Yeah, what's that one little step you can take?
What's that tiny action that can move you past whatever's been holding you back?
It's worth considering.